One afternoon in April, in a remote village in the Kamchatka region, word spread of unusual sightings on the coast. The villagers were stunned by what they saw. It was a wild polar bear, the likes of which none of them had ever seen before. But how had it gotten there? Normally, these animals live in the Arctic, hundreds of kilometers away. The story was intriguing. One day, while the animal was foraging for food, a sheet of ice must have broken away from the mainland, stranding the polar bear. The animal probably tried to get back to land but couldn't risk it, as it was surrounded by ice and water. This was the start of a life-changing adventure for the young predator. After a few days, or even a few weeks, he arrived in a strange land, very different from what he knew. The animal was 700 kilometers from home, so when he arrived in the village and stood on the shore, all he could think about was food. The polar bear tried to dig for food, but every attempt ended in failure. Not only was the land unfamiliar, but it was also unusually hot, and suitable food was scarce. The polar bear wandered around, but initially avoided approaching the village. His sharp ears picked up the distant sounds of people going about their daily business. Normally, other bears stay away from human settlements, but this bear was hungry and tired. It might not have been wise to approach the village, but hunger spurred him on. A nearby building caught his attention, and he walked toward it. The predator, of course, did not know that this was the village police station. He lay there, weak and exhausted from his long journey, with a sad and desperate expression on his face, as if asking for help. It didn't take long for the local police to notice their unusual visitor. One of the officers raised the alarm, and two officers were dispatched to take a closer look at the animal. The polar bear was gigantic. It had white fur and clearly visible, sharp claws. Naturally, they were afraid to get any closer. The policemen approached cautiously to get a better view of the animal, but kept their distance so as not to frighten it. When the anxious officers finally realized what the animal was, they were shocked. There in the snow was a large and intimidating young male polar bear that had mysteriously landed in their small village. They couldn't believe their eyes, but they also realized that something was wrong with their unexpected visitor. The animal appeared to have a serious injury to its front paw. The polar bear lay there, pressing its injured paw against its body. The police officers felt sorry for the animal and decided to help. They contacted the local wildlife protection authorities. The officers were shocked to hear about this unusual case and set off as quickly as possible. They treated the polar bear's paw and allowed it to rest. The bear, called Umka by the locals, became a celebrity in the village. Although Umka ate very little, the villagers brought him plenty of fish and food every day. While grateful for the people's help, it was clear that the bear wanted to return home. His presence became a sensation, even attracting visitors from neighboring villages. The police kept a close eye on him and were careful not to let anyone get too close while they considered a solution. Experts were consulted and concluded that Umka had no chance of survival in Kamchatka and urgently needed to return home. But how? The animal was so disoriented that it could never find its way back on its own. Even if the polar bear knew the way, the journey would be impossible and he wouldn't survive. The situation seemed hopeless. Vladimir Gordienko, head of the State Hunting Supervision Department and the Regional Forestry and Wildlife Protection Agency, explained that Umka's case was not unique. Polar bears sometimes drift away from their homes on ice floes when ice sheets unexpectedly break away from the mainland. Unfortunately, they are often unable to return home or find food in a new environment. For displaced bears like Umka, survival is unlikely. But humans were not going to let this happen. They had to find a way to help the polar bear. News of the unusual visitor spread quickly, and many people followed his story with great interest. Within a few days, measures were taken to return the predator to its true home in the Arctic. The regional governor, Vladimir Ilyich, asked Emergency Minister Yevgeny Shev to provide a helicopter to take Umka back to his Arctic habitat. Additionally, as official Sergei noted, a special transport cage was built for the animal. 8 days after Umka's arrival, the Russian Emergencies Ministry organized an air rescue operation to return him to the icy Arctic. Never before had a creature of such enormous size been transported by helicopter in this way. Everyone involved faced great challenges, but they were determined to carry out the rescue. When they arrived in Kamchatka, experts temporarily sedated the bear to ensure he could survive the flight. Alexander Shell, a wildlife advisor in Kamchatka, reported that Umka was healthy and well-fed. The anesthetized animal was then placed in a specially designed cage and loaded into the helicopter. Villagers cheered as the authorities took off with Umka. But no one could have predicted what would happen during the flight. It was a long journey, and the crew members were nervous. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. They heard a noise from the cage. The polar bear had woken up. Everyone was alert. They didn't want to scare the animal with sudden movements. The crew's anxiety was high. They feared that the bear might try to tear the cage apart or shake the helicopter during the 700-kilometer flight. This could jeopardize the entire mission and endanger everyone on board. Fortunately, the bear seemed to understand that people were trying to help him. He remained calm in his cage, watching them intently. Although he was conscious during the flight, he didn't shake the cage or act aggressively. A spokesperson for the Kamchatka regional government later told the press that Umka had been scared and restless, but remained calm. He was a very brave bear. The flight went smoothly until they reached the designated release site. After landing, they opened the cage. Umka hesitated for a moment, then bolted into the wild. The mission was a great success. Umka was finally home.